is it really new, or have we already been doing that? It's just that because of the system, it has always failed. And because of the state of our societies and the state of the world in general, we feel like doing something, new name, new trend, new term, about being more mindful of our consumption. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you're revenant. Please consider subscribing if you like everything and anything about secondhand fashion, fashion as a whole, critical thinking, and yapping. For today's video, I want to talk about the underconsumption core aesthetic law, whatever you want to call it, because it's a very interesting and fascinating phenomenon that we are witnessing, especially by the fact that a year ago we were all talking about de-influencing from overly promoted items, and now we're like, we should only buy what we need. And I want to see it in the global scale. So, what is underconsumption? What are people saying about it? Is it something that has become so big? And then trying to also understand it in the fashion realm. What does it mean in the fashion realm to be under consuming? Talk about why those kind of phenomenon come about with the whole imitation, socialization process that we talk about a lot in sociology, so we can have like a more critical discussion on the phenomenon. The underconsumption aesthetic law core that we are witnessing at the moment is a phenomenon that is very, very similar to the de-influencing trend. It's just that I feel like that the de-influencing trend was more millennial coded, where it was, people being like, okay, so this product is overly promoted and pushed down our throat by influences, but you actually don't need to have that, because it's not necessary unless you really do need that. It's actually completely unnecessary to buy it because it's not something that is going to be, important or life saving for your life. So try to not always be following what the influencer is telling you to buy, because they're telling you to buy this so they can make money off of you. Whereas the whole underconsumption has been aestheticized. And that's why I feel like that this is more Gen Z coded, because Gen Z have this tendency to aestheticize things in order to partake in the movement and to feel more, legitimate and daring to partake in this movement, because we're human beings and belonging is very important. And that's why if you the lonely wolf doing something and everyone is literally doing the opposite, you're going to be, um, ostracized, first of all, probably. And then, because of this sense of belonging and not wanting to be left out, you're going to follow the crowd, follow the herd, because that's basically what we do as human beings. We still are mammals after all, and we need people's interaction to socialize, but also to survive and to get all the cues of the society. And so I feel that this is the reason why a lot of Gen Zers do aestheticize a lot of things, and it's not that it was not done before. Aestheticizing life and little thing has happened for the longest time. It's just that with social media today, it's more aesthetically pleasing to visually show people something, and to be like, okay, so if you like this, if you like that, you are part of this aesthetic, meaning that you are part of this group. Belonging is very, very needing in our society, and because we are becoming more and more individualistic and losing this sense of community, everywhere we get to have community and to feel part of something, we're going to seize it. I talk about it in my concert outfit video about like the reason why people love to dress up, for concerts, and it's all about yearning for community. And because of this longing, this yearn, and this need of community, if you know that you can easily find your people by having similar tastes, of course you're gonna do that. And it's just that it has been done like more excessively now with social media that we have been used to before, but it's not a new thing. And I'm trying to, you know I'm saying this because I feel like that a lot of people tend to be like, oh yeah, Gen Z, they aestheticize everything. And I'm just like, do they aestheticize everything, or is it just that because of social media and because we are becoming more individualistic, and spending more time, on our phones, it's easier to find your community online, and all the little things that can, garner some interest are going to be aestheticized so you can find people easily. Because as a millennial, I know that so many things have been aestheticized. Like I remember, like during my Tumblr days, like Tumblr was an aesthetic on its own, and everything that was happening on Tumblr was also an aesthetic. So things have been aestheticized for the longest time. It's just that with social media and with the lack of community and the fact that we are more and more isolated, the fact that we don't really get to enjoy life properly, because as millennials and Gen Z, we have been through a lot, economically, politically, and just environmentally as well. And I'm not saying that the other generation have not been through that. Like each generation have been through their hardship, but it's just that, of course, we're going to talk about it more because we are currently living through it. So we're going to complain about things that are affecting us directly. So yeah, like aesthetic has been very like prominent for many, many years, and it's not just a Gen Z thing, but it's just that because we do give this label of aestheticizing life to Gen Z, that's why I feel like that the underconsumption core is more Gen Z coded, so it gets more Gen Z people to partake in it. Because it's a lot of videos on TikTok of people basically showing their everyday life, showing what it's like to be living a regular life, not being an influencer that is being sent, PR, that is being flown to wherever, that has made a lot of money and has become very wealthy. Like it's just people showing what it's like to be a regular person, affected by the current events of society and of life. And the reason why this has been becoming like more prominent and it picked up so easily is because millennials and especially Gen Z have a lot of distrust towards influencers. Influencers have been losing power over the years. I feel like that the more people starting to understand what it was like to be an influencer, starting to see people completely changing manners and behavior the moment they became like an influencer, especially a big influencer. I think that's when people started to be like, okay, so what's going on here? And the distrust happened. Mira Kopolovic is her name? Yeah, Mira Kopolovic. She is the global director of a creative agency, We Are Social. She said this about, the distrust. Lavish influencers sell us a dream, but research shows that the dream is no longer persuasive for most young people, many of whom feel shut out of social mobility, opportunity, and viable future altogether. So you see, the fact that our future is so bleak and we can't really relate much to influences giving us this massive, flagrant display of wealth, is kind of making people feel completely disconnected to those, influences, because they're just like, well, my life does not look like this. They probably working one, two, three jobs in order to make ends meet. They can barely afford food because of the cost of living, barely afford, just enjoying life because, they need to be working in order to afford just surviving and existing. That it pushed more young people to veer away from idolizing influences, from seeing them as this beacon of success, of like someone that you should actually follow or like trust or believe. And I think this is also because a lot of young people have been very disillusioned with the whole fact that we made those influences famous, and we were maybe hoping that we would get something in return, but we never did. Some of those influencers even turned their back against us and decided to vilify the people who made them. And I think that it's a mix of a lot of things. Obviously, it's always going to be a mix of a lot of elements, a lot of events and features. It's never black and gray. Like, society is complex. The disillusionment of realizing that the moment those influences make it, they are not like one of us anymore. They would rather rub shoulders with the rich and famous than be with us. And that's actually the sentiment of a lot of young people also, that they feel like that the only reason influencers do promote things to them is not genuine at all, and it's more like they need to make money off of their audience, and it's more like just doing that for the money of it, which of course, like the relationship that we have with influencers and celebrities alike, because a lot of celebrities now also are blurring with what it's like to be an influencer and a celebrity. Like, influencers are micro celebrities anyways. But yeah, this kind of feeling of, okay, they really not one of us anymore. They literally have boarded the other ship, and they rather get closer to the rich and famous than to really have us. And by doing so, they're becoming less and less relatable because for some reason, like the human brain, when the human brain start to have a lot of money, they get addicted to it. And because they get addicted to it, they want to get more and more money. And that's also the reason why, the people who evade taxes the most are the rich and famous. If the rich and famous were taxed properly, so we could pay social services, transportation, healthcare, all those vital elements with the tax money that everyone pays, we would have like a way better living conditions. But because we live in a capitalistic society, which is not about, making sure that we are all on the same level, the rich and famous get to buy their way out of collectivism. And the moment that you have any opportunity to switch to the other side and to be to the side of the powerful, you're going to do that. And the way you get powerful is by getting a lot of money. And distrust comes from that, is because the moment those influencers get a lot of money, they do change. And when they start pushing things down our throats, they also just doing so they can cash in the check. And we've seen this with, for example, Gabby Hanna, when she did this very scammy, shady, was it like makeup brushes? And then she told her audience to manage the expectation, and she just did that for the money. And that's one way to lose the trust of your audience, is because you only did it for the money. You never did it because you truly believed in the product, and because as well, within the influencer marketing field, the regulations are not very clear. It's a very new field. They don't really have like really strict and clear rules about how influencers need to disclose their ads, how they need to interact with their audience by, disclosing ads or disclosing even PR. Even PR is a very kind of, they're supposed to let people know that this is gifted, but a lot of them don't do that. A researcher named Emily Hund, who is also the author of The Influencer Industry, The Quest for Authenticity in Social Media, has been advocating for better regulatory on social media, because the whole field is so unregulated that it leads to scams or really badly disclosed ads, or even non-disclosed ad at all. And she said, and I quote, "While the industry has developed into a sophisticated, albeit chaotic space, it has done so largely outside the confines of regulatory or professional oversight," Hunt wrote. "Its lack of boundaries opens the door for multi-directional exploitation. Marketers, brand influencers, and platform companies all have opportunities to exploit one another to varying degrees of harm." And so by saying that, is like when I was talking about the whole scammy things that is happening, is that not only it comes from influencers themselves, but influencers are also at the mercy of brands that may ask them to do illegal. For example, some brands might ask influencers to not disclose ads at all, to not, say that it is an ad, but pretend that it's an organic thing, and that they just, bought the article or the items or whatever, or the service, and they love it so much and they're recommending it to their audience. And they also can be prey to marketing agency or influencer agency that are very shady. Like, as I was researching for this video, I read about this agency. It was called IQ something, and this is an agency that is based in Denmark, but they have a branch in the United States. And the influencers were approached by a talent manager from that agency, and in order to sign a contract, they had to pay upfront like $300. And when it turned out that the agency never fulfilled their, duties, and those influencers signed under that agency wanted to have their refund, a lot of them got left unread, or even just with no answer. They talent managers completely disappeared. Very few of them managed to get their refund, but a lot of them did not. And that's the kind of things, that can happen, and it's because of this very unregulated field. And then it leads to more distrust to the community that they have built, that influencers have built, because the whole situation is so shady. And like, then you kind of start wondering, okay, so are you selling that because you really like it, or is it an undisclosed ad, or whatever? It's very kind of muddy when it gets like very blurry, and things are unsaid, and all that. The system is leading people to do very unsavory things, because all they have in mind is to make sure that they're making money, so they can survive, and they can last as long as possible. And that's why I'm saying that it's so important to understand that, like, yes, we need to point the fingers at the culprit. So if an influencer is doing something, selling something, and it turns out to be a scam, or to be very bad quality, or to be undisclosed, or yada yada, we need to call that influencer out. But I think it's important to understand in general that it's also about the whole picture, about how the system is responsible for what we are witnessing now. And the distrust is coming from, a genuine place of years of influencers and brands being very shady in order to make money and profiting off their own communities. After a lot of, ruminating the whole underconsumption core, I started asking myself, wait, if we back into the whole underconsumption core, meaning that we only need to be buying what we need, and not be like heavily influenced by influencers or third parties telling us to buy whatever just for the sake of buying, I starting to question myself on what were we doing this whole time? Because if it is now being said that this whole underconsumption aesthetic is about people being more mindful about the consumption, people being more, caring about the environment, what were we doing all this time? Because if I think about thrifting, thrifting came about because, we realized that the fashion industry was a problem. And because of that, we needed to find a solution to that problem. And so thrifting came as this winning solutions that is going to reduce our impact, going to be kinder for the environment, and going to be like solving the entire problem where we're not going to have any issues. And luxury has been sold as this also very sustainable alternative, which, by the way, is not necessarily sustainable. And so when I thought about that, I was just like, so what have we been doing all this time if being aware of the climate crisis and the collapse of capitalism and the collapse of our society in general, and trying to, do our best to, especially the climate crisis, to slow it down. We had the whole de-influencing trend last year, and then a year before it was about, thrifting or whatnot. And there's always something coming with the prerogative that it's supposed to be more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. And as I thought about that and being like, we're just coming back into the starting point again. Basically, it's just that as if it failed so badly that we need to come to the starting point again in a way. And the more you think about that, the more you kind of realize that if we're coming back into the starting point, is maybe because the alternatives or the solutions that we have been given are on their own, just in a way not working. By that I mean, and I've talked about that in some videos, about how the problem is the system. If we want to have a sustainable world, we need a sustainable system. But capitalism is not sustainable. Capitalism is a very unsustainable and very unethical system. So, how do you expect, under an unsustainable and unethical system, to have sustainable and ethical solutions, So everything that we are given is doomed to fail because it's just a way to appease the mind of the consumer and being like, yes, you can have this in order to feel better about you. But then, they're still going to push the whole consumerism down our throat. And then it made me think deeper because I was like, okay, but now we're talking about a phenomenon, a trend that is started by the consumers themselves, and people just being like, I'm done of seeing these very lavish lifestyles that I don't live, that I can't relate to. And I just want to show you that you don't need to have like XYZ that this influencer is selling. You can have like a very basic, house and just basic items, the item that works, and it's totally fine. It's always so frustrating but also interesting to me to see about how the reason why we always go back around to the starting point is because we are not well organized enough to let people know that we are not going to participate in a system that is in itself unsustainable and unethical. And the whole, the influencing and under consuming trend that we are witnessing are actually really good trends, and they're actually really good initiatives, because that's what we need to do. Like, we don't need to buy everything that is being shown to us, because what's even the point of that? Like, we don't need that. But the reason why we feel like that we need that is because imitation is part of the human realm, let's say like that. When we crave something, especially in a society that is this unfair for the people who are not benefiting from it, the system is built in a way so very few people can actually make it. Because if everyone could make it, we would all be multi-millionaires by now, because nobody works more and nobody works their asses off more than working class people. And I said what I said. Having to come up with new trends or terms to talk about making sure that we don't fuck up the planet, and make sure that we show people that, well, we are more alike than you actually think. We don't all have like this very lavish and opulent lifestyle. Many of us actually do struggle. We have like okay flats. We just living a very normal life, and we get to enjoy life, the very little that we get to enjoy, just like everybody else. And then you made me think about how, Secondhand fashion was sold to us as these solutions for saving the world, when then it became so popular that um, corporations started embracing secondhand, which is a great way, but it never solved anything. If anything, it created like other issues. And I talk about how, secondhand clothes have become so bad in the last 5 years, I would say, where it's just so much bad quality clothes there because it's competing against ultra fast fashion. And the fashion industry is still churning out so much clothes, and luxury fashion is actually not the best either, because luxury fashion is just that you're paying for the price tag, for the brand, for the name of the brand, and very few of them really have craftsmanship still being at the forefront of it. Like some still do, but like I explained in, I don't remember which video, the thing is with fashion items, the production is the especially, I know here in Europe, I don't know where in the rest of the world, but in Europe, for example, if you have a shirt and like the bulk of the shirt has been made in the global south, but then it's been shipped back to, for example, France, and you sew in the button in France, you can then say that the shirt was made in France, when it's not the case. So even that is a bit shady. But it's just, that's just the reality of things. And it's just, then you kind of realize that those solutions have been sold to us as more band-aid, but the thing is, if you don't heal the wound underneath the band-aid, not only is it going to take time to heal, but also it might heal really badly, because you're not really treating the wound how you're supposed to. And that's literally what capitalism is. Capitalism does not want to treat itself because it is intended to work the way it works. And if it does, then it's going to benefit more people. It's not going to be capitalism anymore, but it's going to benefit more people, and they don't want that. And when you think about luxury fashion is all about status again. And like showing status is again another component of capitalism, where you need to show that you made it, that you do have the means so you can buy luxury items. But it does not necessarily means that it is sustainable. If anything, I feel like that luxury fashion is quite unsustainable because of just the essence of it, the fact that it's all about the showing and all about like, looking at people, looking down upon people and be like, I made it because I can't afford to buy, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, or whatever luxury brands out there. So again, we're not asking really the right questions, because the reason why we're coming back around to the starting point is because the culprit, which is the system, is not being dealt with, and because we human beings, what we want to do is to imitate and to have this, and we've been wired to idolize capitalism as the only functioning system. And when you are wired to and have been raised into believing that the only system that can work is the system that you live under, which has been rigged from the very beginning, well, you're trying to strive for it and to do everything in your possible to reach it. So what happened when you try to do everything in your possible to reach it? You fake it until you make it. Imitation in sociology is the basis of socialization. And socialization is a process that every human being goes through in their lives. It happens in two stages. The first stage is the primary stage, that is from birth, and that involves your direct environment and direct, relationships, which means your family, your school, and your environment where you grew up, where in which culture you were brought in. And then the secondary stage is actually involving more the social structure and the interpersonal relationships that you have with people outside of your direct entourage. It's, for example, your workplace, and if you change country, learning about the new culture there and getting the new cues. That's why socialization is, and that's why everyone has to go through that. And that's something that every sociologist have agreed on, that socialization is very important and nobody can skip it, because you're always molded by your parents or your teacher or your environment and all that jazz. And for example, in the primary socialization, your social class is also very important, because the manners, the cues are different from a social class to another. And Bourdieu has actually, studied that. But for this video, I'm going to concentrate on George Herbert Mead, an American sociologist and philosopher and psychologist as well, that is actually known for his theory of self. And I'm also going to concentrate on Jean Piaget, a Swiss psychologist who is known for his work on child development and behavior. So, about Mead. Mead has this theory of self, and in his theory of self, he states that children need imitation in order to build themselves, and they always have to take the place of the other or imitate the other in order to, again, make themselves who they're going to be. Hence the importance of imitation, because I don't know if you remember that, but as an elder sister, I remember my parents always letting me know and telling me to be very careful with my behavior, because if I would do this, then my little brothers will want to do that, and then later on when you're an adult, to like people telling you to be careful around kids, and if you do something, they're going to do the same, because kids are very good observers, and they are going to do things that they see, because for them, they don't have, especially as children, up until the age of 7, they don't really have like proper critical thinking. So everything that they see, they're going to believe that is good to do, because the only authority that they know are, the adults around them, or the adults that they see. So if they see those people doing that, they're going to believe that it's okay to do what they've seen the adult doing. And Mead also explains that the whole socialization is a social construct, because he talks about the subject, which is the I, and the object, which is the me. And that's because of the subject and the object that we build ourselves. And because our environment are very different from, friends and other acquaintances, the way we're going to build our image and going to build ourselves is always going to be tinted by the people around us. And those variations are something that would happen to anyone. And Jean Piaget has developed the four stages of reason in which like a child start to gain some reasoning. And the first step, or the first stage from birth to about 2 years old, is sensory motor stage. Then from 2 to 7 years old, it's the pre-operational stage. Then we have the concrete operational stage from 7 to 12, and then the formal operation stages after 12. Because basically in Piaget's work, the reason why he stipulates those stages as something very important that every kid goes through is because in the building of reasoning, that's how you build yourself. Because the moment you start kind of assessing your environment and also understanding what you are being taught by parents, teachers, friends, and like family members or anything around you, that's when you start understanding what is to be done and what is not to be done, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable. And that's really how you build an understanding of the society. But the thing is, some sociologists are not completely agreeing with Piaget, because they said that your cultural background and has to be taken into account, and that's something that he didn't take into account. Basically, what those sociologists argued with Piaget's take, Piaget's take in theory, is that for them, they believe that it's something that happens gradually and that is more flexible, again, because of differences that might happen in the corners of the world. And it's not as rigid as Piaget has described it to be. And another thing that I want to read to you about socialization and why it is so important, it's because socialization is a process that helps us develop emotions as well. And on this study, it said that socialization is not only critical in internalizing social norms to the development of the mind, but also to the development of emotions. Although there are some basic emotions that all people experience, all people do not express this emotion the same way or to the same extent. Different socialization experiences tied to regional, gender, and class differences, for example, may not only affect how people express their emotions, but also to particular emotions they may feel. And the importance of emotions is because since social media has taken over our lives for many of us for now slightly over a decade, it clearly has also had an impact on our emotions. Not only because I feel like that everything that I see on social media these days are just rage baits, but because of this display of fame and money, and the fact that we so want to have what those influencers have, that it makes us feel some type of way. There's been this discussion happening for a long time about people feeling for following certain influencers and being like, you know what, you don't need to follow. Like, if that influencer is making you feel like shit, or it's too much for you, you can always unfollow. And I think because of that, it's important to take emotions as well as this socialization of our socialization experience, because I believe that what social media has caused is that it has forced us to re-socialize, because it was a new element that came into our lives that we got used to. And as we were getting used to it, we had to know our way around not only the apps, but also understanding what relationship we had with those apps. And it made me think about Irving Goffman theory about total institutions, where he talks about how socialization in total institution, in his example, because his theory is from the 60s, he talks about like socialization in um, the military or prison or psych wards are going to be different because the context is also very different, and it's a re-socialization that you have to go through because you taken out of the society to be in a way isolated from society. I mean, in a way, to be completely isolated from society. And when you look at social media today, social media, a lot of people are constantly online. I use constantly, not chronically, because I don't really like the term chronically. Because people who have chronic diseases, they don't have it because it's their choice. But we do have a choice as consumers and media users to reduce our consumption on social media. So I use constantly online. So because so many of us are so constantly online, we get isolated, hence why also more communities are being built on social media, and aesthetics are popping up left and right because more people are on there than they are really enjoying real life. And that's something that always makes me giggle a little bit because, for example, if you think about Twitter, when you see like all the feuds and the disputes happening on Twitter, it's always so insane because sometimes, as someone who is online a lot as well, and I have friends that are not that online, so sometimes having to tell some of my friends online feuds just seem it just seems so ridiculous. It sounds so dumb because people are fighting over things that in real life people are not even caring about, and it's just that they're so constantly online that they're not institutionalized online with their respective communities or group. And because of that, they kind of vow their life or their allegiance to this community, and they easily preyed on. And that's also why, like, people who are constantly online, they are so disconnected from real life. And when I think about that through a fashion lens, it makes me think about all the like trends or micro trends that we see on social media. But then when you look around you, people are not even about those trends, and they don't even have even heard about them. And it's just that social media has become such a refuge for so many of us that we need to be constantly stimulated. And that's also why I believe that new things pop up, and because also then we isolated and we want to be part of this community, then we're going to be more vulnerable to buy it or to consume it, to get into that new trend or whatever, because we need to feel something. And that's why I think it's very interesting to see in this total institution theory by Irving Goffman, because it's totally what's happening with social media today, where our isolation, the individualism that stems from being completely disconnected from real life, because yeah, a lot of us are unhappy because of the state of the world, and we are yearning for something that we don't know how to get in real life. So we try to get it online, but because again, the online is actually really, really bad, and just built to rage bait you, especially in today's online realm. It's becoming just very toxic, and then we feel like that maybe if we do buy this latest gadget or piece of clothing, we're going to feel better, because then we have this feeling of belonging. And it always comes back to needing community, needing belonging, needing to feel that you part of something meaningful, because those have been taken away from us, you know. And it's a great initiative, you know, but again, it feels like that because we are not addressing what is the real problem and who is the culprit, that it's going to keep happening. Like in a few months time, we're probably going to have like a new trend that is going to pop up again about being more mindful about our consumption and stop buying, you know, left and right just for the sake of buying. Stop giving so much power to influencers, even though they've already lost a lot of power. But they're still going to be around, you know, and not all influencers are bad influencers. Some influencers, you know, again, the system is completely fucked and you need to somehow work around that system. So it's really the type of thing where I feel like I'm going to post it all the time, but like, we criticize capitalism. It's not hypocritical to criticize capitalism. Actually, it's completely logical to do so because we are forced to be interacting with capitalism, you know. If we don't survive. What is my conclusion to this underconsumption law, aesthetic, core, whatever you want to call it? It's that the phenomenon is stemming from a good intention. And it's very echoing the current state of the world and the current need that we all have as a people, which is to show that we have more in common amongst each other than we are meant to believe, and that we are so done of this over sugar-coated lifestyle that we are being sold and believed to have to thrive for so the system can maintain. Yes, we need to underconsume. We need to be more mindful of how we spend our money and to be more caring about the declining planet. But now it's time to put that out of social media and truly take action. And we've seen it that we can take action. So it's possible, it's doable. All right, so that is it for my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you did, give it a thumbs up because this helps me a lot. Share it around. And please let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on this underconsumption trend that is going on? Like, what were you feeling? What were you thinking when you saw that happening? What is it, you know, sparking in you, seeing this underconsumption topic being talked about by everyone and their mothers? And in the meantime, I'll see you in my next video. Love always.